Well, Andrew, thank you so much for joining me today at Founders Room. Uh, I wanted to, for those that don't know, for you to give like a brief description about your background and what Acquire.com is.
Yeah, well, first, thanks for having me on the podcast. I appreciate it. Name is Andrew Gazdecki. Been an entrepreneur pretty much my whole life. Run a company called Acquire.com. We're the largest online marketplace to buy and sell mainly online businesses. We've helped over 1,000 startups get acquired. We've facilitated about 500 million in closed deal transaction. And then before this business, I bootstrapped a SaaS company to about 10 million in recurring revenue, and that was acquired by a private equity firm. And just
Mhm.
going through that process of trying to find the buyer and figuring out what legal expertise do I need and what is escrow and how do I safely and securely sell my company led me to build this company.
Fantastic. Well, most founders love the idea of a marketplace until they realize that the hardest part isn't building the platform itself, but it's getting the first people to show up. How did you get your very first users at Acquire.com?
Cold email, just banging
Okay.
on doors basically. Fun little story there. I originally had a cold email campaign targeted at sellers saying something along the lines of, you want to sell your business? Microquire at the time, we've since rebranded. Do you want to sell your business? Check out this marketplace. And all the founders hated it. And then I switched it to, hey, do you want to buy a business? And then that kind of, you know, put in their mind like, oh, you can go here to buy businesses. Oh, but I also want to sell my business.
Perfect.
So I got the sellers that way, and then uh, same thing on the buy side. And once that little spark got going, which is hard to do, it's hard to get that little spark. Things just kind of snowballed from there.
Yeah, and basically this is the classic marketplace trap, like the chicken and the egg problem. How uh, you first need you both need like startups to sell, but also buyers to buy the startups, and you need pretty much enough startups so it doesn't feel empty the marketplace, but also enough buyers so startups that are listed there feel that something is happening. Was there like
Yep.
a North Star metric that made this? Uh, when this felt like okay, now it's working.
Close deals. Close deals
Okay.
100%. Because it's one thing to list businesses and have buyers in the marketplace looking at businesses. But if
Mhm.
none of them are selling, then it's kind of a waste of everybody's time. So I was always tracking how many deals were selling, the size of deals, because we have different size businesses that will help. For example, will help like a SaaS business with no revenue, and that will sell for 20 to 30,000, and will help a multi-million dollar profitable SaaS business. So getting all aspects of the marketplace activity right, everything is driven by closed deals.
Now, from you are in a unique position where you see a lot of startups. From your vantage point at Acquire, what types of startups are founders building most right now?
Well, we see kind of everything. We see a lot of e-commerce, a lot of mobile apps, a lot of newsletters, uh, tons of different SaaS businesses. A lot of them are AI driven. But the main theme that we see over and over at Acquire is definitely software driven SaaS. All software businesses today are AI driven in some way. But I think one of the cool things I get to see at Acquire is how the founders are building the businesses. So we see a lot of really lean, profitable businesses. Maybe it's one or two people,
Yeah.
and they're managing the entire business. They're not looking to raise venture capital, mainly bootstrap the business. And some of those businesses are incredibly efficient, where they're generating millions of dollars in profit with a really, really small team. So if I had to pick, I'd say those are probably my favorite.
But uh, SaaS is still dominant, but are you seeing like other business models gaining traction, like pay per use, for example, or I don't know?
Uh, a little bit with some of the newer AI companies. I know there's been a lot of talk around instead of monthly subscription billing, it'd be pay for usage. We
Mhm.
haven't seen too many successful businesses with that model yet, but I'm sure that'll change in the future.
What, in your opinion, what are some industries or niches, let's say, that are heating up, but we're not talking enough about that specific niche?
Ooh, that's a good question. I see a lot. I guess the ones that I like the software businesses that help offline businesses where they go
Hmm.
really, really niche. I saw one the other day. This is just a random business, but it was a company that you could pay for someone to come to your funeral and say words of your choosing. It wasn't a very big business, but I just thought it was clever. I saw a really interesting business recently that targeted veterinarians. I think those are interesting
Yeah.
businesses. Anything that targets verticals like dentists or HVAC, where you're taking online software and then selling it to businesses that are more in person, more physical. I think those
Hmm.
are interesting because it's less about really the software and more about the go to market strategy with the founder, where they're cold calling, they're direct emailing these businesses, learning about their pain points, almost building the solution with them. I like those verticals more than say like a social media schedule or something more common that you see a lot of founders building.
Yeah. Um, and now in 2015, 2015, who is buying the startups? Is more private equity, more other founders that they want to buy like a startup that's already generating revenue, or just strategic acquirers? I believe it should be a mix, but which is more active, I would say, in this acquisition space?
Yeah, yeah, you nailed it. Those are our three main buckets. The largest bucket would be other founders or
Mhm.
first time entrepreneurs that are, like you said, looking to buy a business that's already generating revenue. So they can skip over the stage where they're trying to find product market fit and getting those first customers. I would say about 60% of the transactions we do are with first time founders. And then
Mhm.
let's say 20% on top of that for private equity, but they're only going to be interested in larger businesses. So think profitable SaaS business doing at least 500,000 in profit, ideally 1 to 2 million. And then the other 20% would be strategic buyers.
I see. And what is hot right now? Like it's AI or low code tools, or what is mostly being acquired?
It's profitability. Generally with the buyers that we work with, they're going to be financial buyers,
Hmm.
meaning they're going to be looking at the efficiency and the profitability of the company first. And so, regardless of the industry or really what the business does, those are going to be attractive businesses. So,
Mm,
if you're a SaaS business with 500K to a million in net profit, you're going to receive, 5+ offers on Acquire. But if I had to specifically answer that question, I would say obviously software because that's our biggest category. E-commerce with recurring subscription models are also very interesting. Mobile apps that are in a niche category that are somewhat defensible.
mhm.
Any business with a unique go-to-market strategy, those are always interesting because a buyer can look at that with another business and say, "Hey, we can enter this market because you cracked the code on go-to-market."
Good market. Yeah.
Newsletters is another big one too. We see a lot of SaaS businesses acquiring newsletters because they have customer ICP overlap. So
Mm.
it's a big mix.
Can be like a distribution channel, so it's like a strategic acquisition there.
Yep.
Yeah. And how has valuation of these startups shifted in the past few years? So uh, how they were evaluated before, and how are they being evaluated now? And do you see any changes into that? How much multiples, or if you don't have any revenues, how do you basically evaluate the product for to be acquired?
Yeah. So starting with that last point first, I'd say the biggest shift of the past couple years has been the pre-revenue businesses, where it's a really nice product, well built. The founders just couldn't figure out the customer acquisition strategy. Those businesses would be much more interesting, I'd say, 2 years ago before AI. But
Hmm.
given just how easy it is to rebuild software, those have become less interesting to buyers. And then the other big trend we've seen is the shift from revenue multiples to profit multiples.
Hmm.
During COVID 2020 and 2021, we saw just multiples skyrocket. A lot of them were off revenue multiples, and we've seen a path to safety over the past couple of years, and that seems to be just getting stronger, where the multiples are on net profit rather than revenue. So if your business isn't profitable, it's going to be a tough time to sell to a financial buyer.
I see. Interesting. Um, well, you've seen thousands of deals. How long does it take from first contact to being acquired in a good deal and also in a more a longer deal, I would say? So what are like the metrics here?
Yeah, I would say the expectations that we like to set at Acquire is around 90 days. It's really going to depend on the buyer, though. Like, for example, we
Mhm.
recently did a transaction for around 2.5 million all cash, and that closed in 14 days. And
Oh,
that's with a
wow.
weekend. So it was technically 11 or 10 business days. But the
That's
buyer
quick.
was experienced. They were familiar with our Yeah, it was great. We were happy
Yeah.
for both sides. Uh, so with the right experienced buyer, a clear plan outlined from the beginning, it can go, pretty quick. But on the other end of that, we did a transaction for around 12 million, which was with an international buyer, and it had international bank financing involved.
Mm,
They also had a company board for approvals, and that process took around 8 months, 8, 9 months. It took
eight,
quite
nine
a
months.
while.
But also it's
Yeah.
very
So
large amount, I would say,
yeah, just a lot of
to
moving
do
parts.
acquisition.
The more decision makers involved, the longer it's going to take. And then if there's bank financing involved, which requires approvals, that's going to add to the timeline.
Mm. And in your opinion, from the startup side, not from the buyer side, what separates like a startup that gets acquired super quickly from those that sit there for months?
Preparation, 100%. I think it's important to understand when you are selling your business that there's also literally thousands of other businesses looking to sell. And
Mm,
so if you go to market without materials that every buyer expects to see, such as at least a clean financial statement, a P&L, broken out by month for 36 months, detailed, so buyers can quickly assess the financial health of your business. Uh, a product demonstration where you walk through the product. What do customers love about it? What do they not love about it? An overview presentation with just basic questions that outline the acquisition, what you're looking for, when you founded the company, how much do you spend in certain areas each month? Is there a transition involved? What services are required to run the business? We provide all that at Acquire, and we walk founders through all the materials that they should put
mhm.
together if they want to sell. But if you don't put those together up front, what a buyer has to do is they have to hop on a call. They have to ask you these very basic questions.
And then you need to
And then,
provide the documents
yeah,
to,
it slows
yeah.
things down. And then if the buyer isn't excited right off the bat, they're going to move on to the next deal because there's going
Mm.
to be, 10 other deals that do have all this information put together for a buyer. So I'd say preparation is probably the biggest thing.
So like a very good field data room, for example, with all the information that a buyer needs to make a decision to buy the company.
Yep.
And uh, what's the most surprising deal that happened at Acquire?
Uh, recently this year we helped a guy sell for around 2 million bucks cash as well. And
Okay.
he was 83 or 84. I thought that was a pretty cool one. Yeah, and that this
Wow.
one specifically, he acquired the business 3 or 4 years prior. He
Hmm.
acquired the business for, I believe, a couple 100,000, so 1 or 200,000. and then essentially 10x the purchase in 3-4 years. And he was 83. So
Wow,
he was able to like 100% retire after that. He was super appreciative too. It was cool.
that's a very cool story. I think you should make an episode just for that.
Yeah, I know, right? That'd be a fun podcast, but he wasn't
Yeah.
interested.
And now, what advice do you give to a founder that wants to sell but isn't sure if they're ready to sell yet?
If they don't think they're ready to sell, I think it's good to have the conversations anyways. Speak
Hmm.
to advisors, brokers, investment banks, us at Acquire. Just get opinions, just hear about the market, gather as much information as you can. What are businesses selling for? What can you do over the next 6 months to prepare? Are you profitable enough? Is there certain expenses you can remove today? Uh, those things can really, really help a founder, especially if they have a certain price point they'd like to try and sell for. They can start working backwards on how do buyers value the business? How are they going to be coming up with the multiple? Because a lot of founders that I work with where they aren't ready, they kind of just assume that buyers are going to swarm their business. They're going to love everything about it. It's just absolutely perfect. They'd be a fool to turn this down, which may be the case, sure. But for 99% of businesses, you need to put in preparation to properly sell the business and maximize your exit.
Yeah.
And I think by not doing that, the worst case, you find no buyer at all. You lose that first impression. You don't create a competitive process. Uh, it becomes very obvious to buyers that no one else is going to be interested in this opportunity for one reason or another. And a lot of that can be fixed if you speak with people who specialize in selling businesses up front and work towards it. So if you don't think you're ready, I would just have the conversations. It's a good use of your time because every founder at some point is going to exit their business. It's just, are they going to do it voluntarily, meaning they're going to sell the business, or are they going to do it involuntary, where something happens and the business dies, or they need to move away for one reason or another? But in my opinion, no one is going to pass down a software company to their kids.
And how
I
can
mean, maybe.
yeah, uh, and how can founders design the startup with an exit in mind, basically from day one, from when they start the company?
There's a really good book on that called Strategic Entrepreneurship by John Fisher. He talks about how you build like a little puzzle piece to fit into a larger puzzle piece, meaning a larger company.
Hmm.
But simple things you can do is anytime anyone has a question, record a video and throw it in a folder. There was a founder I worked with recently that did just this, where as he built his agency, anytime anyone had a question, he had this company wiki that he just put in the question, put the video in. It was super well organized. And then when it came time to sell the business, he essentially has a giant operating manual from every little question. You're going to answer the questions anyway. You're going to have a short meeting anyways. But just having like a loom of all these different operations and procedures and how the business works
Mm.
can be massive because one of the biggest concerns any buyer is going to have is, can this business operate without the founder? Meaning, is the business completely relying on you? Can they learn everything? When they buy the business, are you going to go retire on a beach immediately and never answer their emails? So having something like that available, which you can start making from day one, uh, can be super helpful. And then you just get more organized with your thoughts and how you operate the business, and you can sometimes find things to improve. But just a company wiki would be a great thing.
That's a very great tip for founders there. Uh, I'm sure completing thousands of deals for startups, you've seen many deals fall through as well. What are some of the most common mistakes that founders make that the deals don't that the deals fall apart basically?
A big one is surprises. When a buyer thinks the business is perfect and they go into due diligence and they uncover, could be financial indiscrepancies, it could be customers are canceling faster than expected, it could be the product doesn't work in certain areas, it could be a co-founder owns a portion of the company and the founder never disclosed that. There's a number of things that just pop up and they're not the best things about your business, but being upfront about that and honest and transparent is the way to go, because buyers I've seen, or excuse me, surprises I've seen derail more deals than I can count. Uh, Another one would just be delays when there's an acquisition happening. Both sides are taking on a lot of risk. As a founder, you're selling your business. As the buyer, you're putting forth a good chunk of capital. And so as delays happen, both sides get more tense and tense. And so not having clear communication around that, I think, is another one. Meaning, in any sort of acquisition, there's always going to be small bumps and delays. And this person forgot to do this, or
Yeah,
I had an emergency come up. I wasn't able to finish due diligence on time, et cetera, et cetera. My recommendation there is to just have a weekly call on the calendar with the buyer, no matter what. So as you go through due diligence, if they come across something that maybe looked a little different, you didn't explain it the way they thought it, it's like a little surprise. You can talk about it during this weekly meeting and have clear communication. And then if there's a delay, you can both talk about why is the delay happening and kind of air everything out, um, rather than having the nerves boil up. But tensions, delays, surprises are the big ones.
surprises. Yeah, makes sense actually. uh, do you think founders now in 2026 should build to exit or to own forever, like having it? So if a business is bringing you recurring revenue, in some cases, why sell, right?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it depends on the goals of the founder, but if it's me, I'm going to say every founder should build to exit for sure. Because I
Hmm.
just think the math doesn't pencil as well as selling your business. For example, when you sell your business, you could benefit from just much more generous tax benefits than if the business is profitable and you're pulling out dividends each year. Easier way to analyze or kind of visualize that would be, it would take roughly, a decade of profits at the multiple you can sell your business. Then you could take that lump sum cash, put it into the S&P 500, and then over 10 years you've doubled what you sold your business for. So to financially justify pulling dividends from your business, it would take roughly 20 years. Um, and that's a very simplified version, but I guess another way to think about it is, if you're in the camp of I'm never going to sell my business, that's actually a good perspective to have as well, because when you do that, you build a really good business. The businesses that buyers want to acquire are businesses that founders don't want to sell, because they're highly profitable, they're really easy to run, it's growing really fast, etc. So there's kind of like some irony to both sides, where the biggest payday for entrepreneurs is always on the exit, most of the time, 99% of the
Yeah,
time. But to get to the exit, you need to build a really good business, and to build a really good business, it needs to be one that you generally would enjoy holding for one reason or another.
yeah. Well, when I started my founder journey, I always thought the best way is IPO, for example. But I've heard some other founders say that selling your business means that you are buying back your time. So let's say you have a business that does, I don't know, 5 million a year. If you sell that for 10x multiples, that's a 50 million exit. Then you bought 10 years of your life. So you would generate that amount of money in 10 years if the business doesn't grow, of course. And you get it now, and you can start building the next business. So basically, you are buying back your time, which is
Yeah,
a way to think about it.
100%. And building a startup is hard too. I
Yeah.
mean, just so much can happen where, if you're really successful today, that can all change with a new competitor comes out, a technology shift happens, black swan event like COVID. I've
Mm.
seen it happen. I guess another way to maybe answer this question is, um, I read a lot about founders regretting selling, where they sold their business and they were upset about acquisition, etc. But the group of founders that I know that regret not taking the offer when they had it in their hand is way larger than the pool of founders that regret selling.
Yeah, 100%. I totally believe that. uh, Also, I've seen a trend in, let's say, in the startup world that so far we've had software as a service, but I've seen a trend that we see productized services. So now it's more service as software, basically. So it's still SaaS, but it's not software as a service, it's service as software. Do you see that often in Acquire as well? So do you see this kind of businesses selling?
What would be an example of that? We see productized services a lot
Mhm.
with agencies, but what
Yeah.
would be an example of a service as a software?
Service as software is exactly like a productized service. So if like a design agency, for example,
Oh,
that
yeah, yeah.
puts
Yeah,
a
yeah, those are
subscription
great
model there.
businesses.
Yeah.
Yeah, because what you do is you take a service and you productize it where you see a higher quality of revenue, meaning
Mm,
there's subscriptions or it's it can scale much easier than say a custom service every time you meet with a client.
hmm
So yeah, 100%. Like if you have an agency with the exact same revenue compared to a productized service business with the same revenue, the productized service business will receive many more offers and a higher valuation too.
Yeah. Yeah. And how do you see the acquisition space evolving? So do you think we'll see tokenized exits? How AI, what role or will AI play a role into the acquisition process?
Tokenized
Are
exits?
are you
No.
guys implementing AI too in this process?
Yeah, yeah. Tokenized exits? No. I'm bearish on the whole blockchain ownership thing. And that's after I my company before this, I had a brief stint building a cryptocurrency exchange actually. So bullish on crypto, but bearish on use cases like that. But you never know, maybe. And then in terms of AI and the actual deal, yeah, we have a number of ways that we're utilizing AI at Acquire. We have a full AI assisted M&A advisor. We have a tool that will help you research the whole marketplace. So if you're looking for a specific type of business, it'll look at all the deals we have and then serve up what you're looking for. But I think with acquisitions, there's always going to be a human element required, just because the stakes are so high and the emotions are so high. A lot of what we do at Acquire is sometimes playing therapist, where we're calming a founder down, telling him the deal's still on, it's getting stressful. We know because it's a life
Yeah.
changing transaction, and if a delay happens, they feel like the whole deal's off. They want to tell the buyer. I just can't see a world where AI steps in. ChatGPT, how should I feel? And they're like, okay, like maybe. I think even if you know the answer, which I think is maybe another topic, but I've had this conversation where
Yeah.
like even if you know the answer, like you upload legal docs to your chat GPT or whatever you use, you'll still go to an attorney to just be like, is chat GPT right? And they're like, yeah, it's right. Like
Yeah,
so you're still
for the
paying for that.
moment, but that might change in the future though. Once the AI gets better and you know that now AI is right all the time, you don't need to ask a lawyer anymore.
Yeah, maybe. I think it's less about being right or wrong and just having a true expert tell you like, hey, this I mean, if it's me, sure, I'm fine. Hey ChatGPT, how do I navigate the situation? Like, is this right? I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
So I will be a user in the world that you're describing, but I'm just saying based on what I see with other founders and the emotions involved, I find it hard to believe a world where uh, you're just type in for your answers. Maybe it's like a robot that like comes in your room and hugs you, like deal's still on or something like that. But
It
I'm
pushes
I'm
you, it
more touching.
motivates you.
Yeah, I'm more touching on the parts of an acquisition that are stressful and it's high stakes and uh there's a lot on the line. You just want that extra layer. So I could see it being more of a combo of the two, where maybe AI does like 90% of the heavy lifting, and then uh there's humans doing the remaining 10.
Hmm. And do you think more platforms like Acquire will emerge in other asset classes, for example?
Maybe. Yeah. I think there's an endless opportunity to build
Are you planning
marketplaces.
to enter into other asset classes with Acquire?
Like which ones?
I don't know, real estate, other crypto. I don't know.
Maybe we entered into newsletters. We did enter crypto this year, so crypto
Okay.
related online businesses, but nothing, no like Ethereum or Solana or selling
Mm,
natural tokens. So we entered into a number of different online business markets and categories this year, but I thought about entering, physical businesses or just a very tangent space with Acquire at some point, but I can't imagine we'll do just because the buyer profile and the seller profile is so different. Even though
mm,
it's somewhat of a similar business where it's a marketplace, but we're buying, selling stuff. But it gets really difficult when you become like, we're eBay, but for buying and selling businesses.
yeah.
So I guess to answer your question more succinctly, our focus is online businesses.
And
Maybe down the road that'll change, but right now that's our focus.
and how do you decide when you open a new category, like you just mentioned, newsletters, crypto, platforms? How do you decide now it's time to open this new category so we can list startups to sell there?
Yeah, great question. Mostly demand and feedback from users.
Hmm.
So newsletters, as an example, we have a content category, and we kept putting them in the content category with blogs and other businesses of that type. And there just became a point where there's so many of the newsletter businesses that it made sense to open up a new category, formally announce it, build
Mm,
special tooling for that type of business. So we do that. Once we see momentum from our users naturally, we expand into different categories.
okay. Uh, if you had to start from scratch today, what kind of business would you build with all the knowledge that you have accumulated, with thousands of startups that you've seen exit? What would you start today?
Uh, Depends on the day. I'm definitely one of those entrepreneurs that has a lot of different ideas. I love, tinkering with stuff. I love marketplaces. I think they're a really challenging business.
Yeah.
And I like that the value in them isn't necessarily the product, it's the brand and the marketing and the strategy to acquire customers. I'm not a technical founder. So a lot of my focus is spent on the marketing and sales side of the house.
Hmm.
But I would probably something around like cars or something like that. I'm a big car guy. I think it'd be cool to have some car marketplace. I'm always on those. Uh, yeah, I haven't really thought of it, but that's my best answer right now.
Well, that's a good idea because every car marketplace that I've seen, it looks very outdated. So it's a market people should pay attention to because it's a huge market and it's still very outdated in terms
Yeah,
of
I think one other
how.
tidbit I'll share just in case it's helpful for people listening. Like, you
Yeah.
don't need to take over the whole, like, let's use Auto Trader as an example. You don't need to take over Auto Trader. You can have a better marketplace for just the exotic cars or the Mercedes Benz or
With
the
classic
electric
cars. Yeah.
cars. Yeah,
Yeah.
classic cars. And it can, if you're into that, because I think building those businesses is somewhat of like a passion business.
Mm,
Like, there's a cool company, carsandbids.com, with this guy, Doug DeMero.
yeah.
He like
I
reviews
I've
cars.
seen
He's
that.
super enthusiastic. But
Yeah.
everybody goes to his marketplace because he has this other content business that reviews cars. And he just did that, I assume, for, the love of reviewing cars. And he ended up getting really good at it. And he has millions of viewers. But my point there is, there's probably a marketplace opportunity for more things than people realize. And they're such good defensible businesses. But you would just need to think like, what is your unique customer acquisition strategy? Because you could look at, there's like a cool image with Craigslist, and it has like all these arrows of different marketplaces made
Hmm.
from Craigslist. You could take one of those arrows and probably do that same thing again today.
Yeah. Yeah. And there are so many categories that you can build something great. And
Yeah.
what is a startup category that you are super bullish on right now?
Newsletters. We've
Newsletters.
been talking.
Okay.
I think they're great buys, especially For non-technical founders, they're easy to pick up with AI because one of the strongest use cases of AI, in my opinion, is the content it can create, the writing.
Hmm.
You can match the tone, you can match topics really quickly, and some of them are just wildly profitable. There was a crypto newsletter I was looking at today. It's doing like 300,000 in profit, and it's ran by
Wow.
one person. Yeah, they're spending like 2-3 hours on it a week. I think those
Wow.
businesses could scale into really interesting opportunities, or they can keep it as is and cash flow the business.
Wow. Didn't
And
know
then if yeah, one other
newsletters are
thing,
like this. Yeah.
yeah, and then if you're a strategic acquirer too, I think they're great acquisitions because you have such an engaged audience, and maybe it'd be a good buy for Coinbase or something like that.
Mm.
Uh, so newsletters.
Yeah. The only newsletter that I've heard of that had a huge exit is Morning Brew. That I don't know. They were acquired by like 70 million or something like that, if I'm
Yeah,
correct.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's incredible. But I guess the way I like to think is you don't need to sell for 70 million to be set. You could sell for 2 million bucks and be set.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, don't get me wrong though. I'd much rather sell for 70 million, but I think the opportunity for online businesses is just massive, and I think a lot of founders get so caught up in the huge headlines and stuff like that when it's much more realistic to chase like a 1 to 2 or $5 million business, and you could. The only difference is your house will have one less room, and your car will have like 100 less horsepower or something.
Horsepower. Yeah. uh, what is the most underrated founder skill that, in your opinion?
Um, I think sticking with something,
Hmm.
really sticking with it, because like, gosh, when you start a business, so much bad stuff happens and doesn't go as
Yeah.
planned. Uh, and I think if you look at every successful founder or business, they'll just all have that in common, where they just stuck with it. They can tell you like 5 stories where they almost died and crashed and burned. Uh, yeah, like I think it's just realizing that's part of the journey
Yeah.
and to just kind of push through when times are getting hard, and to just kind of stick with it. But then also to counter that, it's also a skill to know when to pivot when it's really hopeless and this isn't a direction you should keep going down. So there's a fine line of knowing when to hold them and when to fold them.
Mm.
Um, but I think those are two important skills.
Um, which is one founder that you'd buy a company from without doing any due diligence? I'm curious.
Um, Maybe Elon Musk if I'm able to afford it. I guess he seems to make some really good companies.
Yeah, many trillion-dollar companies. Any more?
Yeah,
Not
I
Elon
think
Musk type of founder.
I think everyone should do due diligence on every
Yeah,
company based on just what I've seen. Because honest mistakes happen where
yeah.
there's something that needs to be discussed. So I'd recommend due diligence on every company.
Well, Andrew, thank you very much for joining me today, and I hope this episode served as first a blueprint for founders that want to exit, what it takes to exit the company now. But also, I hope we've inspired some founders to have some good ideas, go there, try it out, and why not sell their company. Thank you for joining
Yeah.
me today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Founders room, where I